Hello everyone, welcome back to Sharp Cuts. My name is Garrett May alongside Josh Nickel. As always, welcome back to the show. We're struggling to get things together here. We're recording at a new time. Things have been crazy here, but we're here to come with you with, I hope, what's going to be an interesting show. We got two excellent guests today. Josh, you've outdone yourself with the guest situation. We've been only having one. Now we got two, and they're in the same place. I guess maybe it was convenient. But we got Stephen Abrams and Josh Tamukas. Did I say your name right, Josh? Welcome to the show, Stephen. How you guys doing?
Doing good. You pronounced my name perfectly, so you're all good there.
Amazing. I'm off to a great start, Josh. I love it. Don't even clap me. Don't even say anything. Okay, let's get right into it. So these guys in the show, obviously volleyball players. You guys play for Windsor. In Ontario, you both kind of have played on the beach scene as well at the junior level, and a little bit indoor as well. So I figured this applies to all of us, and we could all maybe have a thought on this. I don't know, Josh. I assume you've heard about the new Volleyball World Beach Tour. You have to have, right? It's your job. But for those who haven't, and I didn't hear about it until just recently, they kind of announced this past month that the whole new structure. So I'm just going to do a brief overview, and then I want to get some thoughts, because I have a few thoughts about what they're trying to do, and then we can get into it. So they have three separate types of tournaments now: Elite, Challenge, and Futures on this Volleyball World Beach Pro Tour. I don't like the names already. The Elites, you have 16 teams, no qualifier. Top 16, that's the top group. They're going to be there every time. The Challenge is basically like what we know as kind of an open tournament, where there's 24 teams. There's a 32-team qualifier to get in. That's kind of the mid-range. And then the lowest is the Future with 16 teams, and you can have up to a 16-team qualifier in those as well. So that's the new structure that they're going forward. Immediately, I have a ton of concerns, but I won't. I'll just maybe let that fester and see if anybody here on the panel has any thoughts about this kind of new structure for the Beach Pro Tour.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely exciting that they're trying to incorporate these new changes. But as you said, there's definitely some questionable calls right from the beginning. Having the names already, like Elite and Futures and Intermediate, kind of throws curveballs in there. It makes people question, do you really want to watch a Futures tournament if you're just a normal fan? Is that going to attract the same viewership as an FIVB 1-star or 2-star, just based on the names itself?
Well, that's interesting you say that, because they're actually thinking that people won't want to watch that. That's why they're only doing the Elites, I think. At least they've committed to only doing the Elites on the Volleyball World kind of streaming service. So they, I think, agree with you. They think, no, nobody actually does want to watch the Futures. Who cares about them? Let's just broadcast the top of the top. But definitely you're right. Who wants to host a Futures if you're a promoter? Hey, yeah, who's going to play in that? It's going to be garbage.
I think I see the Futures being what the 1-stars were this year, Garrett, where you see a few really keen federations. Like Bulgaria hosted 4 1-stars last year. So I think it's just a good way if maybe you don't feel like you have a team in that Elite 16, it's a good way to get home experience for them, play a bunch of events. But yeah, the prize money's not very good. And any indication I've seen of the point structure is there's going to be no sandbaggers. Once you've established that you're a challenger team, there's no chance you're going back down to Future, because the points are so little and the prize money is so little that once you kind of graduate beyond Futures, you're not going back.
Okay, so that was my biggest problem with it. Is if that's the intent, you're just going to be a frickin' log jam to get into Elite. Think about how many teams we know who come out of the qualifier and go and win a Grand Slam. How deep things can potentially be, or make a quarterfinal. And now you got a log jam of potentially 48 teams stuck in that challenge mentality. Holy, and what are they going to do about country quota? Are you going to be allowed 4 teams in each of those as well? Now Brazil's got 12 teams across all the different things. It could be a huge mess.
So what I'm hearing from our players who are on the committee is I think Volley World is trying to be really inclusive and take the feedback from the players, Garrett. But the problem is a lot of the players have selfish goals. So we've heard rumors that there will not be a country quota limit in the Elite 16. So if a top country, maybe Canada, has 8 teams in the Elite 16, that's going to be totally allowed based on the points, which I think as a fan, it's hard to watch like say Canada hosts an event and all the quarterfinals are either Germany or Brazil teams, it's hard to like get fired up for those matches. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, Germany versus Germany in the quarter. Who cares about that as a general fan? So that's going to be super interesting. I do like the fact that there is no qualifier, and the list is going to get announced about 28 days before. So as a fan, you can kind of like look at the draw, like kind of like World Champs is. You kind of know what's happening before, and they can sell the matches a little bit more. So that part's cool. But the no qualifier and how fast the teams switch, I agree. There's going to be a logjam, and there's going to be a lot of good teams playing these challenge events.
Well, but you've taken out your most exciting matches now in the qualifier. Like, I don't know, you guys went to the Worlds. Were you in the qualifier of that tournament, or were you right in the main draw?
Yeah, we had to grind through the qualifier, which it's like, I think in our World Championships, 3 teams that qualified all made the quarterfinal. So there's really good teams. There's really good teams in that qualifier. So if you eliminate that, you're going to miss out on not only great games in the qualifier, but teams that can go all the way and perform well at the tournament. So I think it's a bold move taking out the qualifier at such a high level because so many teams are so close.
Right. Okay. But so if you think, okay, your challenge tournament is the qualifier, but still, if you're marketing these elite tournaments, you're taking out some of your most intense, most exciting, most entertaining matches for people who, like you said, Josh, don't actually care about either team, but you know that they're both scrapping it out for trying to make it in, right? So now you've handcuffed yourself there. But now the only qualifier matches, the highest level qualifier matches, are going to be in the challenge tournaments. Like that intense. It's like what the heck are we doing here? I don't even. It just like. And who is this for? Like, so you guys went to the was it Youth Worlds, Junior Worlds?
The U21, so junior.
Junior World. So like that's a great example. Like when I played then, I would have loved to say have one of these future tournaments to go to. But then again, like for you guys, say, are you thinking like, okay, yeah, I'm going to shell out a couple $1,000s to go to, where did you say hosted 4 events last year? Bulgaria?
Like Bulgaria.
Are you paying $2,000 each to go to Bulgaria to play in a futures event? Like, is that something you're thinking about doing?
I mean, maybe, but like, probably not though. To be honest,
It's a tough sell.
Yeah, very tough.
Like, so
Is there like an age limit on this future event too? Like, why is it called future?
well, I guess they're yeah. Like, what if Garrett May comes out of retirement and is going and dominating all the futures? And it's like, no, I don't want to go up. I just want to be in the futures. I'm not even going to register for the other events until my points go down. Then I'm in a future again.
Yeah, that is a good point. Like, there's no, obviously the future could be meaning it's the next people coming up. But what if you're just 30-year-old guy who's grinding? He's not going anywhere, but he's got the minimum points and he's just going in all these futures.
That's awfully close to describing me there, Steven. So just watch yourself when you're on Sharp Cuts, okay? You guys have been awfully nice so far agreeing with me, but 30-year-old guy who's grinding it out, come on, watch where you're going with that.
So basically, if Garrett lived in Austria or somewhere that had access to all these tournaments, like a
that'd be me.
cheap flight or like a train ride away, you'd be playing in all these events.
Oh, I'd be there. I wouldn't even practice. I'd just be like, hey, put me in. I don't know. If my country's hosting, like if Canada hosted a Futures in Vancouver, say, and like nobody wants to come to Canada, I'd register. Why not?
I feel like if Canada hosted one of these events, it'd just be like 12 Canadian teams.
That would be great, though. Yeah. How amazing would that be for us, selfishly? Like we had the North Bay Norseca a while back, and we like packed that thing with Canadian teams. We didn't even fill the tournament. We could add more.
Yeah, I think at the Edmonton one as well, the 3-star, there is still some empty qualifier spots.
Hey, watch where you talk about the Edmonton 3-star, okay? We only refer to that event in the highest regard. That is the best event in Canadian beach volleyball history. Like, I think there's no doubt about that. Anybody who was there would tell you that.
The court announcers were just top tier.
The court announcers were the best ever, is what I've heard. What I've heard from the event.
I heard that too. Yeah.
I think they were called V Squad. A terrible name.
Josh and I were down there as well, and we were getting pretty fired up on the sidelines with the announcers. It was a good time.
Yeah. Now I'm actually wondering if these two realized it was me, or if they just playing along with the bit.
No, we knew it was you.
They're great guests already, Garrett.
Great guests. See that? Listen, I'm glad you found great guests, Josh. They just go along with everything we say so far. I'm loving it. Agreeing with everything we say. I mean, listen, you guys know it's Sharp Cuts, though, right? Like that's what this show is called.
Yeah, I word on the street. I've seen a couple episodes for sure.
Oh, that immediately gets you bonus points. But anyway, yeah, you're right. Like if we could get a futures, like what are we even in the running for? Oh, and the other thing if you haven't seen the video, I mean, it's a 1 minute video. It's got some nice beats to it. Just kind of the announcement video for it. They show a map, and I'll maybe take a screenshot and show it on YouTube for those who are watching. They show a map of the world and all the different spots where, like, they put a V where all the different spots of the events they're hosting are. And they put one in, like, Northwest Territories, like in Northwestern Canada. And I'm like looking at the list. I'm like, what event is this? Like, are we hosting something? What do they mean by this? Nope, just totally like spread out the V's to make it look like they were going across the whole world when there's no event in Canada. Like, it was just totally faking it. So immediately my suspect meter was
yelling
on
at their screen. Yes, we're getting one. We're gonna kill the Whitehorse.
I was hype. I was looking at it. I was like, yeah, V up there in Canada. I was like, oh, we're hosting. Look at the list. Nothing. I mean, immediately suspect of this whole thing just because of that.
I will say, if you look at the calendar, though, it looks like whoever designed this finally owns a map. And what I mean by that, Garrett, is there have been years where you go to Europe, and then the next 4 stars in Brazil, and then you got to go to Asia, and it's like just the travel alone was like, who designed this? Where now it looks like Australia's going to host a few, and those are in a row. Brazil and Mexico are in a row. Like, it seems like they finally realized that the athletes, have to travel to every event, and they made it a little bit easier on them, like logistically and just fatigue-wise.
Well, I'm immediately going to call you on that as I look at the list of events right in front of me here. I am at an advantage, but we start in Rio, go to Mexico, so that's not terrible, but then we go to Cape Town, South Africa. I mean, that's a huge jump. Then back to Spain. I mean, then we hang in Europe for a bit. So you're right. I mean, there is some of that going on. And I mean, I guess we end in Australia. So maybe they're doing like the full sweep across the world or something like that. But yeah, a few big jumps still.
I think it'll always be that way, but yeah, I just remember years where it was like terrible. And Grant did like 40 hours of travel in like one stint, and I was like, why would you put your body through that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. And like you guys went. Where was your Junior Worlds?
It was in Thailand.
Yeah, so like that's a journey. Like you got it. Like I mean, you obviously fit in the bill for that. Like you got to pay for that. So when you're paying, you got to try to find the best travel arrangements, right, to save some money.
Yeah, it was a grind, and for us, the way home, like the day before you leave, the airplane line that we're going on, they went on strike. So the day
oh shit!
Figure out how to get halfway across the world on a day's notice. So I'm just calling my dad at home. We're trying to figure out flights. It was an absolute grind.
So you were there by yourself?
Yeah, Josh's parents.
Thankfully, I had my mom there with me, so. A little bit of emotional support there. That was a little stressful.
Yeah. So, but imagine, Josh, if you're trying to get these futures events for the future, these kids, like 18 to 21-year-old kids, and on the women's side, those people could be winning tournaments. Like the youth in the women, like can dominate. Well, the men too, but not as young, right? But you get people going off, flying the world by themselves, barely out of high school. Like, what are we trying to do here?
Yeah, it definitely helps. Any way you can get the younger people that international experience, I think, is huge. So if these future tournaments are a little easier to get into for people that don't have as many points, I could see how that's a huge benefit to people like us that right now, with the COVID stuff that happened, like we don't have any more FIVB points anymore. We lost our chance to get into those other tournaments. So if this gives us that opportunity to get some points and get in it, then I can see how it help for sure. But at the same time, if you have to bounce all over the world on a moment's notice, like it's not easy when you're 19, 20 years old, fresh out of high school, haven't traveled much, especially by yourself. It's a grind for sure.
Yeah. See, you bring up an interesting point, though, that I hadn't noted in our topics today, but I'm kind of curious to talk about now. It's about experience. And you're saying how valuable it is for you guys to have international experience. And the question that kind of comes to mind for me is like, why? Why is that experience valuable? Is it because you like? Because I go, well, if you were the best and arrive at a tournament as the best, your experience doesn't necessarily matter as much, right? The experience is super helpful for getting you to improve. So I get that, but like, why are we asking? Like, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but maybe the Continental Tour idea is the way to actually kind of go here rather than these futures events. Because, like, why are we going to ask people to spend a bunch of money traveling all over the world to get this experience and high-level competition when you could actually regionalize things and just get valuable tournaments where you're getting better and improving without spending so much money and traveling as much?
I think the missing link here, Garrett, when you talk experience, is if we could find a way for the vets to stay connected to the young ones. And the reason I bring that up is, like, my first
Taking a
FIVB,
shot at me?
I think. No, I think you or anyone who's ever played on the tour would be valuable, because my first one was like Quebec City, so super friendly, super well-run event. I think that's normal. Go to Long Beach, like super awesome, like easy. But when I go to China, like that was mind-blowing to me. Like you got to figure out what, like, you don't speak the same language even as a volunteer. So how do you find the shuttle? How do you find what to eat? Like
all that stuff.
Where are the courts? Like I think that's where experience kicks in. Where like if I wasn't even playing, I was coaching. But if you're a top level player and your first event is in China, there are so many distractions off the court that you don't even know how to handle it. Where if they talk to you or some other vets, they're like, okay, you're gonna have to pack peanut butter, you're gonna have to pack camping meals, you're gonna have to do something because you're gonna hate the food there. Like there's ways to gain that experience without having to go through the trenches of doing it yourself. But I think there's enough in a few countries that host events that if you don't know what's coming, it's a big distraction and that will affect you.
That's a good point.
Well, Josh, on that topic, like before we went, we're pretty close with Jake McNeil, so he helped us out a lot. And like you said, like being close with your vets can make a huge difference. He gave us a lot of pointers, and I saw the other Canadian teams that came with us, being their first event, like they were missing out on some of those extra things. So like for me, myself, I'm a pretty picky eater. And that's huge. When you're competing, you need to be at your best. You need to be dialed on your nutrition. So
yeah, you got to get over that. Can't be a picky eater playing on the tour.
So I made sure to bring the things that I needed to prepare myself and be ready to play at my best. And I saw other athletes, either not even from Canada, just everywhere, like struggling to eat. And it shows in your competition if you're not able to fuel yourself and prepare well enough on the tour, especially, you're not going to perform the way you want.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, and I kind of underestimated. So I guess that, from that perspective, experience is valuable. But at the same time, like, if you go somewhere and you can deal with that, like, there's ways to mitigate that for sure for a young team coming up who's ready to go compete, right? Or is that like, I mean, in China, yeah, it's tough. It's going to be tough, but we can prepare for that. I think we do a terrible job of that as well. Of like, and maybe you guys can relate to this as well, is when I was growing up, you play on your domestic tour, like in your province. So for us, it was the OVA Beach Tour. You know, for others, it's wherever they're playing. And then you improve, you play the Nationals, you play some other events in your country. Then you try to go to some continental events or some World Tour events. But then, like, that's kind of the line, but nowhere in that line is there any preparation for what the life of being a pro athlete is. It comes at you like a wall the first year you got to go and spend a bunch of time on tour. I'm not sure if you guys feel the same way.
Yeah, it was definitely an eye-opener just jumping from OVA events and then just going to Thailand and then seeing like the best players in the world at our age. And like, it was just a completely different experience, completely different feeling of playing volleyball.
Yeah, like you play in your OVA, you're like, okay, I gotta pack my cooler, I gotta have enough food to last a day, like, or maybe it's a 2-day event, so it's like, okay, you know, we gotta know the other teams, you know, we gotta show up early, get a nice parking spot, like post up under the tree or whatever. But like when you go and you're playing an international event, like it's just a whole different preparation method. Like, what do you do the days up to your event? Like, that's just something we never considered, right? So like, this is why there's like this futures thing is like, it's not going to be, the name futures implies it's going to be a bunch of young teams trying to up and coming in it, but I can't see it being that either, right? Because how many futures are you going to have to play before you earn your way into the challenge events? I don't know, 5, 6, right? Like a number. And at that point, now you're like a traveling pro athlete and not making a ton of money.
Yeah, and like for each future team that goes up, someone's going to have to come down because it's not, as you said, it seems like there's a pretty stagnant amount of people there. So if someone goes up, that means an experienced team in the challengers is going to have to come back down to the futures. So it won't necessarily just be the young guys grinding, but there will be some experienced teams in there for sure.
So I wonder, Josh, and I don't think they've explicitly stated it, but will they have consolation matches in the elite tournament? I would watch that. Hey, you lose, you're going down to challenge.
That would be a match I would want to see. You're right. When you put it in order, Garrett, I think the qualifier matches are really intense and like quarterfinals onwards. But yes, if you add that consolation and like, because I imagine when we talk about the things off the court, like the hotels are going to be nicer at the Elite 16, the food's going to be nicer. When you get sent back down to challenge, like I think that's going to be a different lifestyle. That's going to be the best match of the tournament are these consolations.
Right. Like, or like, I don't know, like that, like the third, fourth place pool play match, like the match to determine if you win or lose your pool. Like, because if you come fourth, like maybe your points are low enough, you're going down. Like that is going to be so intense, and it's going to be intense because it's the people's livelihood on the line. It's like, it's pretty dark though. Like in the NBA, if you watch a match to see if you make the playoffs or not, the losing team, they're all still millionaires. Like they're still making $1 million. If you're the 16th team in the Elite and you lose, you go down, you're making far less money. Are you going to be able to feed your family? You're going to have to move out of that nice place you got. Like that could be a life-changing journey for you. It's kind of dark.
Like that's where your mind went first, where I'm just trying to like be entertained and watch really competitive matches. Now you're actually worried about that person's family and how they're doing.
Oh, well, I want to watch it too. Like, I mean, I want to watch the entertaining matches. I mean, do what you got to do. But at the same time, I remember Adriana, one of the national team coaches here in Canada, she said to me, yeah, like, you know, when you play against teams who their kids' food money relies on them winning this match, you know, it's a different level of competitive energy than just some punk kid trying to be famous. Like it's, you know, not necessarily the skill levels or whatever they are, but that energy, the competitiveness is just at a far different level.
Yeah, that definitely brings a whole nother element to the game, especially, as you said, bringing it back to growing up on the OVA Beach Shore. There's none of that, not even a little bit. And then now we're going to World Championships and the guys we're facing, they have that, okay, I need to do well so I can, because we talked to the guys from Mexico, like they're getting money from their government if they do well at these tournaments. Whereas for our junior tournaments, it's like we're out there, we're by ourselves, we're grinding. And these guys are like, they're grinding as well, but they're grinding for their lives. Like I need to be able to eat when I go back home and things like that. So it's a whole nother animal that you have to tackle for sure.
Yeah, it reminds me of, so when I was on tour with Rich, he was friends with everybody. We need to have Rich Van Heusen on the show. He's a beauty. But he's friends with everybody on tour. And he introduced me to Laura Ludwig back before she was a gold medalist. But he was friends with the Chinese top player at the time. His name was Tiny. They called him Tiny. I think his last name was Xu, XU. And he said, hey, you got a new partner. Like, what happened to your old partner? And he goes, you don't want to know. We're like, what the heck happened? Like, what? And he was like, yeah, he was underperforming, so you don't want to know where he ended up. And it was like, oh my God. Okay. Good luck, man. Like, you know, they just take him out. Like, I don't know, go do something else now. Like, what's he doing? His life's changed.
He's working at a car factory right now. Like, you never heard from him again.
Yeah, like
what,
he doesn't know. Yeah, he's like, well, I guess he knows where he is, but like, yeah, no, not in a part of it anymore. It's like, oh my God, that's intense. Like, so you can see why sometimes those guys get like that energy on the court gets super fire, because it's like, man, they need that more than I do. It's tough.
Yeah, having the risk of just, oh, you're not allowed to play anymore, you're gonna go do this, and you better get fired up for your next game if you know that's on the line.
So Josh, you taking some notes for some motivational tools for these young guys coming into the program. Hey, you don't deliver, you're off the team completely and banned from Volleyball Canada ever for all time.
Yeah, I can't picture somebody
You
from
said,
these
yeah,
countries.
there it is, folks. You heard it here first. Josh agreed. That's it.
I just can't picture this type of athlete, you know, sleeping in or being late for the shuttle or like having a bad warm up. I feel like they just must be so laser focused because so much of it like relies on their performance.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm so happy you brought up late for the shuttle. I got to ask, because so many times we go on tour and you just see teams coming up and just doing dumb stuff like that. And I've done it too, believe me. Like Dan and I, one tournament, showed up the night before we had to play, unknowingly got the dates wrong. We showed up the night before we had to play. They had to give us an exception for the preliminary inquiry. We obviously lost. It was terrible. But I see people do dumb stuff like that all the time. Late for the shuttle, like running down, like I'm getting my shuttle for my 2 hours from now game. And I know they're playing ahead of me and they're like, oh, I got to make the shuttle. And it's like, wait, don't you play in 20 minutes? Like, oh yeah, we got to go. It's like, oh my God, like you're going to lose. Did you guys see any of that when you were in Thailand?
No, we were pretty lucky. Our venue was down the road from the hotel, so it was like a 5-minute walk. So
oh my gosh, that's lucky.
Really no excuse if you're sprinting to the court. Like you have no third party to.
Oh yeah, there's some places we go where the hotel's like a 30-minute drive from where the venue is. And like if you don't make the right shuttle, like if you get the shuttle an hour before your match, that's not enough time. Like you're going to arrive 20 minutes but people inevitably do it thinking, oh, there'll be a match ahead that went to 3 and it'll get delayed. But then some people like showing up right before their match. I did see a Spanish team do it one time and then win. Like show up like late, 10 minutes before, scramble to warm up and then win. I thought, oh my God. Okay, yeah, wow. Well done. You absolutely do not deserve that, but good for you. Have you ever been on tour, Josh, and seen like your teams doing dumb stuff like that?
Not our teams, but the situation in Qinzhou at a 3-star in China was, the people think they're getting on the shuttle an hour before their game, but it was like a 40-minute shuttle and sometimes there was traffic. So it was, I forget their names. It was like England 2, and they were fighting for like the Commonwealth spot for there. That's why they were on tour. And I saw them, like I'm getting off the shuttle and I'm just like kind of soaking it in, like setting up cameras and doing stuff where like they got off the shuttle and went to their court and put their bag down. And about 4 minutes later, the ref's blowing the whistle for like the coin toss. And it's like, how are you guys professional athletes and you were literally just on a bus for 40 minutes? Like there's no way you activate. And they got smoked. Like they absolutely got smoked. But like, I don't understand how you're playing for money, you're traveling the world to do this, and you're so like nonchalant about stuff like that.
I think there's no excuse really as well. Like I know for our game, when we found out our time the night before, so you have plenty of time.
All right, easy here, all you judgment guys out there, judging all of us who've made some mistakes. Hey, it happens to the best of us. It's not like you guys. What's your biggest procedural screw up in a volleyball match?
Oh,
here's my first one, Garrett. My first one. So I'm coaching.
Yeah, see, now we're gonna.
I have a terrible one. George Brown, we get invited to a preseason tournament in Cambrian. So we're on the bus we're traveling the day of, so we have to go play in Sudbury. And we stop for dinner, and the guys wanted to stop at Harvey's. And I'm thinking, okay, Harvey's, whatever, like it's food or whatever. Our best player had like a poutine, 2 burgers, and all this stuff. Garrett, I've never seen somebody who I thought was a good volleyball player play so terribly bad where he almost threw up in warm up from his own diet choices. He played like 6 points, and we had to sub him off. And I was like, this is your first OCAA game as a George Brown Husky, and this is the stupid decision you made. And I watched it happen, Garrett. I watched it happen.
So are you taking that on as your mistake for taking them to Harvey's or his mistake for feeding himself terribly?
I think looking back, it was definitely my mistake. At that time, George Brown was an expansion team, so these guys didn't know how to travel. They didn't know the level of the league, all this stuff. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't that great of a tournament. We ended up winning, but anyways.
Hey, worth it. You needed that adversity.
That's true, because if we would have just showed up and won the tournament, there is no adversity. But now we could talk about like planning and prep and all the things that go into it. So, yes.
See, way to turn your massive mistake into actually somehow a mastermind move to help your team get better.
It would have been easy to blame him, but as you're sitting there as a coach, being like, I watched this happen. I watched him sit down at a table with like a tray of enough food for 2 people, and I thought like, oh, okay, like that's dinner. But no.
I mitigated that by saying to the team loud and clear, we are never stopping for food before the game. Ooh. Figure it out. If we're driving there the day of, figure it out. Bring something, do something, and they did. So, all right, Josh, Steven, you guys come on, you gotta have something. Biggest screw up for you. Josh was not really him though. So we may need a better one out of Josh. Mine is definitely arriving to a qualifier match the night before, missing the preliminary inquiry. Huge screw up on all me. I booked the flights. What about you guys?
Yeah, for me, I'd say it was in our first year at Windsor. Me being a rookie, I was in charge of the jerseys. So wherever we went, I had to do the jersey. So at Christmas time,
what does that entail? Give us some context here. What do you do when you're doing jerseys?
basically, I just gotta go before we leave. So in this case, we're going to Montreal. So like 10-hour road trip. I have to grab the jerseys, put them in the bag, put them on the bus. So it's really not that hard. But we go.
But if you miss one,
it gets worse than that. So I put the jerseys on the bus, figure it's fine. We go drive 10 hours. We get there the night before, whatever. Grab the jersey bag. Don't look inside. I'm like, oh yeah, I got all the jerseys. Go the next day. We're playing Montreal. Open the bag. We only have one color of jerseys. So I forgot an entire like set of all the jerseys. So I was just freaking out in the room. Like all the guys are like, yeah, I need my jersey. I'm like, I don't have them. So
Wait,
I had to go up to coach.
but basically you play libero, so you forgot also your jersey.
Yeah, so what happened in the end was everyone wore their jerseys and I had to wear my little warm-up jersey, and it was lucky because it wasn't an official game, but coach was not happy, and that
Well,
was
but
probably
and you wear one set of jerseys. Suck it up, everybody. Like what? You're gonna stink. Like deal with it. But they were probably pissed. Those like posh fourth years who've been riding pine for 3 years. What do you mean, rookie didn't bring a second set of jerseys? I'm gonna stink.
Yeah, it was definitely. I felt so bad, and the game did not go well. But I never forgot him again, so got that going for me at least.
See, I have a funny story about jerseys too. Before you go, Josh, somebody forgot my jersey, number 17 jersey for a game at Western. I forget who it was. We didn't have rookies doing that when I played, but one of the trainers or whoever does it just left my jersey, number 17. So I had to play in another jersey, and I had a great game. So all of my stats went under Garrett May number, I don't know, 1 or whatever I played as that game, but it was separate in the thing from my Garrett May number 17 that year for the stats, and just lingered in the thing until somebody took me out because they were obviously, oh, there's a duplicate. But yeah, so weird that happens. Josh, what you got? Can you beat best us?
In that same Montreal trip.
What? You both blew it?
Yeah, blew it. I blew it probably bigger, more hard than that, honestly. So I was a redshirt in my first year, and there was like a new rule that was placed in that year that redshirts can't like dress for like even preseason matches, right? So,
but doesn't James know you went to Junior Worlds? Like, come on, James. Like, what, you gonna redshirt me? Let's go, bud.
So coach invites me out to the Montreal preseason game. I figured just to get like the road trip.
To sit on Pine, coach.
So I go, and I didn't realize that we're playing some like unofficial like scrimmages where we're just wearing warm-up jerseys. So I did not bring my shoes, ankle braces, or knee pads. So I was wearing Nolan Langley's ankle braces, which were so tight on me. Pierce Johnson's shirt, which is probably like 2 sizes too big. Like Dommy's shoes, just I was in shambles.
No, I do not blame you for that one. I do not blame you at all for that one. But you did agree to go, though, thinking you weren't going to play at all.
Well, yeah, a trip to Montreal, why not?
Fair enough. I mean, fair. For sure. We had guys wanting to come with us, too. Yeah, but, like, I blame Coach a little bit on that one. Like, Coach. But also, how is your first question not, oh, Coach, like, am I going to be playing?
Exactly. Yeah, great question. I don't know why.
You just assumed not. You knew you'd be like, assumed, no, I'm going to be on the bench.
Schedule or anything. I was just a dumb rookie.
Okay, so it sounds like this trip to Montreal, you two both completely blew it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't our brightest hour.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think those are pretty low stakes though. Mine is still the worst. Josh, did you have a situation where actually you made the mistake?
I don't think so. I don't think so, Garrett.
Come on.
Guys dialed, man. Holy.
You're just pristine record.
What
here.
could you possibly screw up so bad at a club or high school level here, Garrett? Like,
did you ever send a team
going to Worlds like
the wrong scouting report and they lost?
I've sent the wrong scouting report, but then caught it and then had to go back and redo it. I've done that before.
Yeah, that's again low stakes. You know what? Fixing his own mistakes, like. You know what, Josh? We got to put you in some more precarious situations where you might actually screw something up.
Or call the wrong player the wrong person. So now I always say like Garrett left side or like Garrett defender, so I don't mess that up again.
I played right side, by the way. You should know that though. Thanks for that. Wow. Well, it seems like we're a bunch of screw ups except for Josh. Comment down below. Like, we got to have something for Josh. Maybe a mistake he made on the show or something. Like, I don't know. Gosh, this guy's record can't be this perfect. I can't think of anything though, Josh. Like, I can't really like throw shade at you because I don't have any ammunition on that front. But please.
I'm trying to think with the episode on Passin Dimes, I definitely asked somebody a question that like wasn't them. I remember
You
now.
did?
Yeah.
But they just
I was
played
like,
it
oh, so,
off.
Tell me
Like,
about
I don't
this. And
remember
they're like,
that.
wasn't my year. And I was like, oh, so, and it was a bad one. Like I like talked about the year they won a national championship, and they're like, they didn't win a national championship. Like it was one of those. Like,
wow, I did
think
not
I left
notice
it in the episode.
I
Like,
did not
I
notice that. I should have been way more. But yeah, listen, I've gotten people's names wrong, forgotten who they are, asked stupid questions. So that's all fine and good. So moving on to summarize Pro Beach Pro Tour. If I had to give it a grade, I'd say we're all giving it a 5 out of 10. I would say that's been my sense. Average.
I don't hate it. Like if they can find a way to get more, as you said, like the best players. If you're gonna go to these futures, like you should ball out, and I totally get that. But at the same time, for me, like before I go, I don't want to be like my second tournament ever to be in like a challenger tournament where I've played one international before. I want to be able.
Hey, that's how it's gonna be. Like that's how it had been for the history. If you wanted to make it in, you needed to get a partner who had points, or just go with 0 points and try to get in. Like that's the only way it used to be. So I mean, actually, for accessibility, maybe this is better than it used to be.
Maybe, and I will say it does feel like there are a lot of events, Garrett. It feels like the number of tournaments is going up, so that's a good sign.
So are we going to bankrupt the whole system maybe, or is there going to be some money around? I don't know. Maybe.
And if we're looking for good things, I like the name Futures better than, remember when the NBA first started and it was the D League? Oh, I play in the D League? Like, that was a terrible name.
I thought that was a great name.
You think the D League is better than the Futures League?
I would rather call these Futures tournaments the D League tournaments. Like, let's be clear about what they are. Futures is so optimistic in its nature. No. Let's let people know where they're at. You are in the tier 3, or like number them, or call it the terribles or something, like just the really exaggerated. I'm down for that.
Trillium for our Ontario listeners.
Trillium B.
Not even A.
Yeah, Trillium B.
Trillium.
Speaking of that, so you guys both, obviously, we talked a little bit about some of your indoor stuff. But Steven, I know you played some junior national team stuff as well, and you guys both did the kind of junior world stuff. So it's not often that you get people doing both, kind of involved in indoors at a high level, but also playing beach. Like, well, most beach players do play indoors, but then the junior national team stuff, pretty uncommon. I tried to do it when I was your age. I did the tryout thing and I would have made the team, but I turned them down to play beach instead. So I am kind of curious though about, because we've talked a little bit about this with TJ Sanders when he was on the show about the kind of the highest level, but what we don't get at is like the climb, right? Is like, that's where most people play, is when they're in their club age or they're kind of university players or whatever. I'm curious from your perspective, and Josh, maybe you can chime in here on some of your thoughts, is like the indoor versus beach vibe for that kind of junior national group, right? You guys obviously go on doing some training group in preparation for the junior beach volleyball worlds. You're with a bunch of guys in a training program, you know, on your university teams, but then on your junior national team. And I always found the vibe so different. I'm just curious, Steve, maybe some of your impressions, some of the things maybe you didn't like about those two different areas.
Well, I'm going to cut him off here, and just for our listeners, this is some behind-the-scenes stuff that nobody really knows about, Garrett, but I'm going to go ahead and blame the FIVB here for why we didn't get Steven Abrams this summer. And the reason I bring that up, Garrett, is indoor was so organized that, like, they knew when their international tournament was, so Volleyball Canada could host the junior stuff, and we could go that. Steven had already made and committed the indoor team and had planned, probably bought his ticket to go to the competition before the FIVB even decided we were going to run a U21 Worlds, that it was such short notice by the time we did it that we couldn't host the trials, we couldn't do it. So I think we lost out on some players because I don't think Steven was the only guy on that team who could play beach at a high level. But because indoor and the FIVB, they love their indoor stuff. Don't get me wrong. That's like the golden child, right? So because they were so well organized, I think that's what broke the tie for a lot of guys that could have done both, is the beach thing just kind of like came together where Thailand's like, hey, we'll host. And everybody's like, okay, they're hosting. Now there's a tournament. But we didn't know there was a tournament till the middle of the summer.
Okay. So, Steve, you are perfectly placed to comment on this then, because Josh is a little bitter, but you went to an
Very
environment that was not Josh's environment. And so I'm kind of curious what some of the vibe, the differences was, because I have some of my own thoughts, but maybe you got some as well.
Well, the huge thing was when we actually went to our World Championships, I don't even think I'd ever met Josh or trained with Josh before. Like, we didn't do any of the national team stuff before we went to Worlds.
You blew it, Josh. There's your mistake right there. What are you doing?
We've corrected that. Now that Andrew Koss is around a little bit more, I think the athletes going to Youth Worlds, at least the Ontario ones, have been in the center. I've met them. We've worked with them a little bit. But yeah, it was there was a disconnect there for a lot of years, I think.
So what did you do instead? Was that Team Ontario stuff?
Yeah, the only time I was in the center was when we actually had our trials, and then I went. Our actual tournament was in the summer, like before the summer started, so we were still in high school. So we were like going down a couple times a week to Ashbridges and training with Team O, but we didn't really have any of the national team experience. So we're training with guys that are like 2-3 years younger than us, but we're about to go against the best players in the world.
That's tough. But even still, you're still getting that kind of beach group training environment. And then more recently getting access to like this indoor group training environment, right?
Yeah, even this summer, I trained a month with the next gen beach guys before I went to the indoor. So
right.
I found, like, if we compare world versus world, I felt much more prepared for the indoor worlds because it was sort of like a 2-month long tryout where we had 8 practices a week and we were grinding, we were living together. So everyone had a common goal. You're super connected. You're grinding every day. Whereas before the beach worlds, we practiced 3-4 times a week with different people every day. Like, I found the indoor one prepared me a lot better, and I felt that there was a lot more tools that we could use. Like, we had
and I'll stop you because you're definitely right. And in Canada, if you're listening, you're not in Canada, indoor gets the cash. Indoor gets the money. They make it rain over there. Beach doesn't get as much love for whatever reason, but that's okay. So that's going to reflect in like what the opportunity is. Indoor, you go to a full center, you got the serving machine, you got the full hotel, the team, cater, everything. You go train. Beach, it's like, wow, we can't do that. We need you to actually come here and pay your way, and because we can't really do it. And that's just the reality. I'm a little bit more curious about like the people that you interact with, right? Because that's probably a bigger factor in your experience overall, but also in helping you improve.
Yeah, honestly, the beach program that we did this year, I think this was the first time.
Did you both do that?
I
did not.
So I was with Josh, and I think there's 12 or 14 of us, and honestly, that was probably one of the best training groups I've ever been a part of. All the people in it were awesome.
Now, are you just saying that because Josh is here?
Honestly,
yes.
I wish I was, but it was.
Wait, you wish you were. You are though.
Okay,
you wish. You wish his training environment was worse.
No, it was. I misspoke. It was pretty good. I honestly, we brought people from all over Canada, so it was like the first time that I'd really been in a beach training group, and like the tools that they had. Sure, it wasn't as pretty as the indoor, but they made it work as well as they could, and it was pretty great to be able to grind. And we interacted with the B team a lot, which was huge. So we got to play guys that are traveling the world in the pro volleyball player scene right now. So that was huge to get to compete with some of those guys.
Okay, that's all great. Sounds great. They're all great guys, but really, was it like that?
Yeah,
was it really all sunshine and rainbows?
There's definitely a little discrepancy in skill because
I'm looking at Josh and he's rolling his eyes because he knows you're full of it right now. No, not you, Josh. The other Josh. No, not you. You. No, you.
Me, Josh?
Yeah, you. Yeah.
I don't think he's full of it. I mean, when we went to Thailand, we had a pretty good time. Like, all the people we met were very nice and very welcoming. So.
And what was the coaching staff like for that tournament?
Angie Shen came,
yeah.
and Darren O'Neill came as well with us.
Yeah, I mean, most people are great. I'm curious when you compare it to indoor as well, and you guys have your team environment obviously with your Windsor team. But when you compare those two, what are some of the differences you find?
Yeah, I definitely found a huge difference in how we prepared for games at the indoor versus beach. When we were at beach, like we kind of just showed up and played. Like sure, we're in the qualifier, but I felt like we could have been more prepared for our match. Whereas indoor, we're like, I'm watching film for 3-4 hours before we play the team. We have we had the head coach or head statistician with us for Volleyball Canada. He was giving us these insane game plans. Like I felt like I was prepared to beat like everything they were going to do. I know what they're going to do.
But are like all the players like buying into that? Or because like when I picture myself in that environment, like watching film for 4 hours, like looking at stats, like yawn, I'm going to fall asleep. Like everybody's like fully engaged.
Oh yeah, for the most part, like I'd go and I'd watch with a couple other the receivers. We'd go and we just watch their servers for an hour, 2 hours, and then
oh my gosh, what?
Yeah.
You watch people serve for 2 hours?
For at least now we'd watch their hitting angles, and then we'd go have our meeting with our actual coaches, and they'd go over everything, their tendencies and stuff, and that'd be another hour, and then we'd go play them.
My goodness, Josh, like that's a lot. But that feels like excessive to me almost. But maybe that's because I'm more of a beach guy, I guess. But that's what I mean. Is like that would seem like going and watching film for 2 hours. Like that's like 3 full games of a beach team.
We don't even have access to that. Like, I think it's cool that Lionel was able to track that down. Garrett, our database is like 3 stars or higher. So when our team goes to U19 Worlds, if they want to watch video, like our best bet right now is honestly YouTube. I don't even know where we would find video on a bunch of these teams.
Yeah. But if you did though, and you sent it to the beach teams right now, how many of them are going, yeah, give me that. I want to watch film for 4 hours and prep for my match.
Well, now that I know that people actually do this, maybe I should, but I'll never send them a full match.
Do people actually do this? I'm calling BS on this. I don't.
No,
4 hours, like 2 hours of film. Like, Steven, what are you talking about? Really?
It is heavily clipped. It is heavily situational. We're looking for, like, these are the tendencies we're looking for. We're not watching 4 full matches in a row. No chance. Like, it is heavily edited by me, unfortunately. But, yeah, we're not watching anything in full here. That's nonsense.
Well, but even if you did watch 3 matches in full, that would be about 2 hours-ish. He's watching 2 hours of just people serving. Not even the match. Not even just people serving.
What our day would look like if we played our game, we'd play it a couple times. This happened. Like we'd do our scouting in the morning. Like the night before, they'd make us like sit down in the room as a team, and we watch the full match of the team we're playing the day before. So in that game, like I'd be taking my notes, looking at tendencies, watching our people serve. Then like the next morning,
writing stuff down
while we're watching. Yeah.
Garrett, you never wrote anything down.
This is blowing my mind. I still don't write things down. What are you talking about? You're sitting watching a game, taking notes as the libero.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Do you guys do this at Windsor too?
For Windsor, it's a little bit different. It's like throughout the week, since we have more time to prepare for a match. Starting on like Monday or Tuesday, for me, I'll start and I'll shot trace the servers that we're going to have that weekend, and then look at their hitting angles, and I'll probably spend like 3.
But by hitting angles, you mean their serve?
No, like I'll watch their serves and their
and the hits.
Yeah, like both, and like the setter tendencies and stuff like that. So probably like 3 or 4 hours at least.
Okay, I'm sorry. We've had it pretty cordial. Serving angles, though, you're charting them. They're serving to either 1, 6, or 5. Maybe a short serve in there. And they're doing mostly what their coach tells them to do as well. So what value are you getting out of that?
Well, it just shows us like how we want to set up, how we want to play around that server. So like, for example, if we have a guy going 5-5, like we want to make sure that whichever his favorite serve is, like we're not giving it to him. So we know like, okay, this guy's doing this right away. We can get out of it one and done. This guy's like not going to score on us.
But don't you think a guy going 5-5, if he comes against you and you're passing out of 5, he might go 5-1 because like, I'm not going to serve the libero.
Well, first of all, I'm not going to be passing out of 5 because I'm lib. So
one rotation you do.
No,
not anymore.
You don't?
Not in a 5-1. No.
What?
No.
He'll be in 1 3 times and 6 3 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not when the P1 is in position 2?
No, he comes
No.
back with the setter and left and right switch.
Yeah. The P2 would still be in 5 in rotation 1.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, like we'll make sure that like depending on what serve we have, guys cutting off and taking more courts. Sometimes I'll be taking like half the court if the guy loves this serve, so we can make our passers in 5 super comfortable. Let them get out right away. Because
That is such a
I think guys
minute.
internationally hit the same, so they can have a favorite serve. I would imagine a shot chart is like a tendency they have. You're telling me international guys can't serve anywhere on the court based on the situation, or like Garrett's talking about, like what if their favorite serve the match you watched was a 5-5, but now against you guys they're actually going to go into the 1-6 seam. Like
the majority of the guys had very consistent serves. There's a couple
Great
guys on
point. It is the OUA we're talking about here, Josh.
this is at World Championships. Like, I mean, Russia was pretty good. They could
serve more than one spot. Let's see.
yeah.
Damn those Russians, not doing the same thing every time.
They like a lot of guys were like serving pretty internal the majority of the time or external. Like they'd hit like 6-5, so we could shift a little bit and just make it a little bit easier to make better passes.
Okay, so but Josh, are you as well doing as much film as Steven's saying he's doing? Like he's taking notes on this. Are you taking notes? Like are you doing this too?
Definitely not as intense as Steven, but I definitely do look at probably at least 2 hours of film before the match arises. So
And no notes though. You're just watching the game.
I don't really take notes. I just kind of take mental notes up here. So
Yeah, I mean same. But I like 2 hours is like because I find like and I'll say this. There's only so many middles who serve from position 5 and left sides who spin serve out of position 1 and left sides who tool the block line and middles who hit to 5 and right sides who hit backdoor that I can handle before I lose my flippin' mind. Like there's not that big a variety I find, or at least when I played in the OUA. Like you're statting a guy who's a left side and it's like, okay, does he tool line or does he hit cross? Like what are we really like? What's the difference there? Like you get oh this guy hits seam. Well what? Hey, close the block. Like how's that actually going to change what you're doing?
Well, it's the OUA, Garrett. I imagine half the P2s they watch are like tip to one.
Right. Yeah, sorry, I forgot. I did forget about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like it just helps a lot. Like some guys we notice can't hit certain shots, so then we don't have to worry about that. And it just like the guy can't hit line, so now we know. Okay, I'll take more cross because our block's gonna be more cross.
See, but if you had played a guy like me back in the day, it wouldn't have mattered. Guy doesn't hit line, well, he'll still find a way to go cross. Okay, you guys have to do me a favor. I can't remember if James was the coach or not, but if anybody's still there from when I was still playing, which is possible, I think James was there maybe in one of my later years. Windsor pulled a move where on our P2, they called down, like they went down on his in-system sets in the front row, and they called down on him. He got set 10 times. He got 6 kills on 10. So four times a guy strapped it on and made a dig. You got to ask around about that if it's kind of because it's a legendary strategy employed against us that did not work. I'm curious if there's any intel still lingering about that.
Honestly, I can't say I've heard anything like that in my entire life. It sounds pretty outrageous, but I'll ask around and I'll do some digging.
You should ask James and say if he was there then, because it was 2014 was the year. Man, that I feel old saying that, but yeah, full down call on the left side. But Josh Nickel, I'm shocked. While I'm here berating the guy saying he studies, he takes notes, he does video, you're allowing me to do this when you do all the scouting reports, shot charts, and edit video for all the teams on the national team. You're just letting me tee off on this guy when he's doing what you would want him to do.
I'm just shocked. One, he has that much time. I would like to talk to him about his studies, by the way, if he's watching 4 hours of game tape.
Yeah, how are your
every
grades
week.
there, Steven?
They're good enough. They're
Okay,
good enough.
yeah.
But I maybe I've been out of indoor too long, Garrett, where I just wouldn't spend that much time on like what the serving tendency is, like shot charts, rotations, tendencies, all that stuff. Like how can you maybe force a response from the other team's setter? But yeah, I don't want to watch 10 minutes, let alone 3 hours of the other team's just serving.
Well, and I don't envy you either, Josh. Like beach is probably worse. Like you watch, oh yeah, shot chart. Yeah, he rolls line and hits cross. Oh, what does he do when they block him cross? Well, he hits line or rolls cross. It's like, okay, what? How much of this can we stomach before we vomit?
Yeah. Two people in a ball. It doesn't get that creative, really.
Yeah, like, oh, he goes on too. Oh, where's he hit it? Well, both ways.
I know on the beach it's a lot more of like forcing them to do the things you want because there are only so many shots. Like you said, if you're blocking line, they're probably rolling line, hitting cross. Maybe they sneak in a cutty.
Okay.
So it's like
I got two stories that this is reminding me of. One, Josh, when we first started doing shot charts with the national team, it was like the first time we started doing this. It was back when we hosted the Junior Worlds in Halifax 2 years in a row. And the first year I was with Danny Deminenko, and we're playing a Czech team, and we get the shot chart. We're looking at it. We're going through the scouting report with, it was Rob Dybe at the time who was taking us through it. Jason Hubbard was there, taking us through the shot chart. Yeah, okay, tendencies, here it is. They do a lot of short line, deep cross. Okay, cool. We get in the game. All they do is pokey. They only ever pokeyed. And that came up nowhere in the scouting report because it was just the shot chart. So it was like, we were so pissed. We were like, what? We didn't have time to watch these guys play. We got just the shot chart. You didn't think to tell us they pokeyed everything? Like deep, like jumbo. They were good at it. And the other thing, maybe you guys relate to this at Windsor. Walk into the game plan meeting every time, headed into the week. This is what happened every single time. Every single scouting report. Maybe James is a little bit more detailed. Goes through each player. Oh, left side. Yeah. Hits line. Hits cross. Block him line. Middle. Yep. Hits to 5. Block him to 5. Yep. Right side. Hits to 1-6. Yep. Block him to 1-6. Every single game we ever played, that was the case. You maybe sometimes got this. Middle. Hits to 1. Hits to 5. Take him to 5. We feel like, okay. Like, fine. We had the same game plan every year. Maybe I'm giving away the Westerns game plan here ahead of you guys going to play them. So,
I feel like for our team, like passing is very important because we're very undersized. So we do tend to look at like serving tendencies a lot more because, well, if we want to be successful, we're going to need to be in system as much as possible. So,
yeah, we'll go in and Gravel, big setter guy, so he'll always have somebody say like, okay, their setter's going to be doing this, so we have to do this, this, and this. So like, let's say some teams like will serve one because their setter sets left side. Every time when it's coming over his shoulder, he never sets the right. So we know that when we serve to one, they're going to set left, and we can stack our block, and we can just trap them, things like that. So he's really, really good at finding the little setter tendencies. So we'll talk about that a lot in our meetings, which is huge. That contributes to a lot of extra. Whether you're getting like 2-3 points from that a set, that can make a huge difference, especially this year when all the teams in the West are super, super close.
Yeah. Does he ever give you like little useless pieces of information, like things that are just totally out of context and not usable at all?
I've probably heard a couple before. Like sometimes if like the set's inside, I mean, our team, sometimes we can get trapped in blocking just the same spot consistently. So he always has to remind us, like, if it's inside, guys got to block inside. Heard that one a million times. So for me as a lib, it's easy for me to say as a lib, I don't block ever. So I'm like, yeah, makes sense, Gabriel. Like, if it's inside, block inside. Come on, guys, got to listen. But then again, like, I'm just sitting there playing defense. Like, I don't have to stop inside when it's inside. So easy for me to pick from the back row.
So that's actually game relevant, though. We used to get like totally little notes on the board about players like that. Just our coach had accumulated over the years, like low confidence, like soft spoken, scared, or like things like that. That like we maybe could somehow take advantage of, but we're totally irrelevant. But we always got a great kick out of that.
Definitely nothing like that. I haven't heard those before. Sounds awesome.
Okay, yeah. So all this stuff is obviously stuff that you get at university that you never really got, or maybe you did, but I never really got as part of the club experience, right? Because you play in the OVA, at least for us here in Ontario, the other kind of provincial associations, and your national tournaments as you kind of approach university. And that's often like such a tough transition for people, I find. Like you guys talked about your kind of first trip in Montreal, and you have like a few things to take care of, and we blow it completely, right? Like when have you ever had to deal with being a red shirt and like, oh, do I bring my stuff or not? And now you got to worry about everybody's jerseys, not just your own, and bringing it to the tournament. Like I'm kind of curious from your guys, like obviously we don't do a great job in club of like preparing us for the next level, right?
No, it's just so different, I think. There's got to be ways where you can make it a little more similar, because the transition, it's such a big jump. You go from only ever playing in tournaments, ever. Like, never once did I play a
to
league game.
Format, match games.
Yeah, it's the complete opposite. I think this year with COVID, they might have started to do more stuff like on that aren't as tournaments. I think I heard that
Comment
somewhere.
down below if you're still listening. Let us know, because we don't.
But I think it's just the tournaments are great because it's convenient, but I think there's got to be a better way to incorporate a league format or something. If that's how the best players are going to play at the next level, I think you got to try and prepare them a little better for that transition.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, but now, I mean, Josh is already getting a headache from all the admin needed to go into that. Josh used to work at the OVA. Thinking about like having a team come across the province with a whole club of high school kids to play in a single match or like a league format style game, like what a nightmare.
I think with COVID, I was talking to one of our players who still coaches club. They are doing a league thing because they were having trouble finding facilities, because there's still communities who don't want, like if you run a high school, Garrett, they don't want a club team coming in at night because of the protocols and all that stuff. So they're doing that. But the conflict a lot of coaches are having is, I only get so much practice time with my team, and now I'm going to turn it into matches. And do I really get like, does everybody get touches and feedback and stuff? So that's a bit of a challenge. I think the OVA did a good job though. Like you have like a region, or you have certain teams that you have like a mailing list with. So it's not like you're inviting like Ottawa to come to Toronto or something like that. So it is kind of regionally driven. But yeah, to Steven's point, I feel like when I coached club, you go to a tournament and you just tried to make your team as best as possible. You weren't like game planning and practice for like what you were going to see, because there'd be 8 other teams there and you couldn't predict what you're going to do. So you just try to get like as flexible, as good of a team as you can get, versus when you're doing league stuff in college. Like, yeah, we would prepare for a week for the same team and kind of plan drills and do prep and do video. Like it's totally different. So to say that one feeds into the other, yeah, you're playing a totally different style of volleyball, like funneling into the university or college system right now.
Well, you know what's wild too is what I see though is when you see the players who are playing in university, they come from a handful of clubs in Ontario, or a handful of clubs in Manitoba, or a handful of clubs in BC, and like you see maybe 1 or 2 other players from like some of the best players from some of the smaller clubs, but it's mostly these big clubs. They got teams at every age. That's where often the club players go to university. But then you also see these guys at university who just start playing, who've just played high school or never played club, and it's like, what, this makes no sense. Like how is a guy who never played club going to be better and more competitive than these guys who play club coming in? And why is it only these players from these, like I'm thinking about all the best players from other clubs that I played against, like so many of them quit and didn't play when it was like players worse than them on just a big club kept playing. Like, is there something about that culture that's like, oh yeah, like keep it going, whereas if you're from a small club, it's like, nah, you're done after this?
I think for me, I was from Georgetown, and we got super lucky. We kind of made our own team with all our buddies locally, and I think from what I've heard from other people is just the team chemistry and the team attitude was very different. We were there to grind. Like every practice we came in, we were ready to grind, and as a result, I think 7 of the guys from that team went on to play university.
Wow.
Is pretty uncalled for a team that's like, even for a team from Pac-Man to have 7 guys, that's huge. We were a team from Georgetown, and like just a bunch of random guys really that decided to start playing volleyball. So I think we were kind of an anomaly, because as you said, like you see guys from Pac-Man, guys from Storm, guys from Mavs, they'll have 4 or 5 guys every year go play.
See, and now I'm tempted to brag. I'm tempted to like counter that with the numbers from my club team, but I'll try to resist, Josh. So I don't want to feel like it's all about me, but it's a good point. Like, what are you counting them now? Yeah, relax. It's about these
your
guys. Your club team
had a bunch, Garrett, I think.
Yeah, we had 100%. Yeah,
it's pretty gnarly.
But that was
that's
lucky.
right. Even your third middle went to Ryerson. That's right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like guys on my team who did not play went and played at university. The best players from another team, like you guys had 7 guys. Like I'm sure 7 guys. Was that your whole starting lineup? Probably not. Probably one of your starters like didn't play, right?
I think all our starting lineup went. Yeah.
Okay, so the seven starters then.
8, yeah. Yeah.
I think we have 8 actually.
Okay, yeah. So like one guy who's on the bench is going to play at university when a guy you battled against in the tournaments, starting maybe a good player, is like out. What, did he not get scouted? Did he quit? Like what? Like I don't know. It just seems like such a weird, unconnected thing where it's just what happens.
Yeah, like the guys that don't see any court time for 4 or 5 years of playing OVA are now starting over these guys that started on a good team for 5, 6, 7 years.
You sound
It's
a
like,
little bitter there. Are you? Is that a little close to home there?
Well, honestly, I didn't start on my club team until 17U, so I definitely paid my dues riding the pine for a while. So
Your coach sounds like an idiot.
Wasn't your coach your brother too?
Once Robbie and Jake took over, that's when I broke out. But
That's when you started, when your brother and his best friend were your coach. Okay, that makes sense.
To be fair, I was like 5'0", so I'd come in the back row for 3 rotations because there's no libero. I'd pass a couple balls and then I'd go off because that's all I could do. I couldn't play in the front row. I was too tiny. Like I literally could not get over the net until 16U. But having the no libero is it's a topic for another time, but it was definitely tough for a couple of years not playing much because there's no libero, there's no position for me to play. Yeah. So that was definitely different.
Well, you both made it to a university team now. You're screwing up jerseys and not bringing your stuff, and we wish you all the best. So, I mean, guys, that's the episode. This one's even longer than some of our normal ones because I think we were just having a great time chatting about some of these things. But this is how the show normally goes. I have to look at the time and kind of say that it's kind of over. What'd you guys think?
Oh, it was a blast.
Had a great time.
Yeah. Love having a good time on the show. Always a pleasure with Josh. First time with Garrett, but holy, it was a good time.
That's really nice of you to say, Josh. I'm waiting, though, for somebody to say, hey, how was it? And go, you know what? It was absolute garbage, Garrett. I don't I'm waiting for that to happen. As long as the guests have fun, I think we're good. But as long as they're being honest, is probably more important. So
you know
if it was
don't
garbage,
post this and don't call me again. Thanks.
Yeah. If it was garbage, would you tell us?
I maybe wouldn't be as adamant about how great. I don't know if I have the balls to say, yeah, that was brutal.
So that's a no. I would not tell you. I would hide it and just give you the lip service. So we don't know still if you were being genuine or not based on that comment, but we'll have to take it at your word. So, but thank you guys for joining us. It has been a blast, at least for me. We've gone well over time, but that's always good. If you're still listening, thank you so much. I have no idea why you made it this long in the episode, but we're so glad you did. Hit that subscribe button, comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. Josh, anything you want to leave with the people?
Just as always, thank the listeners. And Garrett, we tried to make this tradition of where to tell them where they fit in the show. And I got to tell you, Garrett, it was a rough week. It started off with Garrett being like, hey, let's get an Olympian. I'm like 0 for 5 on Olympians right now. So I went to the go-to. I went to Stephen Abrams making his 3rd appearance on the Passin Dimes franchise, bringing his friend Josh along. This was awesome. But yeah, Garrett, in full transparency of who is the list, Gord Perrin, if you're listening, check your DMs, bro. I'm in there.
Yeah, what a terrible gutty move by me. Hey, Josh, get us an Olympian. And I do nothing. I did absolutely nothing to follow through. And Josh, you came through with guests, though, for sure. So hopefully you guys aren't offended by that.
I mean, those are some top dogs. So if anyone's on the show over us, I'd be happy if it was a couple Olympians.
Right. But what if it was just some random?
Then we just may not.
So we won't tell them who else turned us down, Josh.
I just noticed that Windsor was going to play on Wednesday night, so I thought they had time to record right now with us, Garrett.
Nice. Okay. Well, listen, that has got to do it for this episode. We've gone on way too long. It's going to be a beast to edit, but thank you guys so much for joining us. It was great to have you. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.